name is Patrice Perkins, and I am the Albany Chapter Director for Startup Grind. Startup Grind is an organization that's out of California, out of Silicon Valley, and it's designed to inspire, connect, and to engage entrepreneurs. So we do that by holding interviews with startup founders, venture capitalists, investors, people around education, just basically getting the information out, getting questions answered about being an entrepreneur, how to be a better entrepreneur, starting your own business, making your business better, faster, stronger. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm excited that RPI and Anita DeCiani Brown, was actually at our first Startup Grind event. We're brand new to the area. We started in December. Our first event was in January. We've had 3 events. I've got business cards that you can grab on your way out if you'd like to know more about what it is that we're doing locally and on a global basis, because we are a global organization. When I started in December, we were in 50 cities and we were in 25 countries. And as of March, we are now in 85 cities around the world, and we are in 50 plus countries. So we're growing very rapidly. We are powered by Google for Entrepreneur. So they are helping us to do the things that we do, and so here we are. We're just glad that you're here. So we have a tradition in Startup Grind that I'm going to ask you guys to help me with, and that is to help us to greet our guests. I'm excited that we have, he's cracking up, he laughs every time I do this. We've got Ed Mitzen, who is the principal CEO owner at Fingerpaint Marketing, and Fingerpaint Marketing is based in Saratoga, and they are an advertising concern. They cover pretty much everything from soup to nuts. If you have an opportunity to check out the Fingerpaint Marketing webpage, I encourage you to do so because it is a very fun place to go. I found out about Ed. I saw that he had an article in the Business Review, and in that article, the picture was his hands were painted blue, and he had this grin on his face, and I was like, who is this guy? Who does a Business Review article with blue hands? But that really speaks to what they do, really bringing fun into just the business that they have. So have an opportunity to check that out. But I would like to invite all of you to help me give a Startup Grind welcome to Ed Mitzen from Fingerpaint Marketing. So Ed, it is awesome to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
You are back by popular demand. you are our first Startup Grind guest, and you know, your story is a very interesting story. It's unique to you, obviously, but I think you've got a lot of things to share that are important to entrepreneurs wherever they are on the spectrum. So I want to start talking about your childhood. I always like to know, tell us something interesting about your childhood.
I had jobs all through high school, grade school, lawn mowing, shoveling snow. I popped popcorn for Comedy Center and movie theaters, which was just an awful job. I worked on a farm. I did a little bit of everything. So I always was like that.
Did you know when you were a child, how old were you? I don't want to say age-wise, but where were you in the spectrum? Was it high school when you decided that you wanted to be a business owner, or you already had jobs, so you knew what it was like to be?
Yeah, I was around 25, and I grew up in Voorheesville, for those of you who are in the area, and I went to school, undergrad at Syracuse, and then I had a couple of jobs out of school, and had met people that had owned their own companies, and I always thought that that would be a really cool thing, to be able to kind of control your own destiny. I didn't know how to do it. I was a biology and organic chemistry major in college. I had never taken a business class. So I went to grad school and for entrepreneurship, actually, and learned a lot about what I thought I would be good at and what I knew I needed to get some help with. And I would say it was probably 26, 27 when I thought, this is really something I'd like to do. I just needed the idea.
So as I think about your story and some of the things that you've shared in the past, before you actually branched out into business for yourself, and you were an employee and you were working some really crazy hours,
yeah.
And it was making an impact on your family. Tell us, that there was a shift that occurred for you.
Sure.
That made you decide.
Yeah. So Anita heard this last time, and Patrice too. But so I was like 30 years old, and I was working in Columbus, Ohio, 80 hours a week. Felt like I was a crappy dad because I wasn't home. I had young kids. I felt like if I was home, I should be at work, and I was just totally stressed out wherever I was. And I came home I had a really crappy week at work, and my wife gave me our son to watch while she washed up for bed, and I had him on the bed. He was like 2, and I was watching ESPN, just like zoning out, and he rolled off the bed. He's fine, but he rolled off the bed. My eyes filled up with tears, and I basically quit the following Monday and said, I'm out. I got to try and do my own thing. So it was kind of this, as he hit the floor, it was kind of that epiphany where I got to try something different. But you know, I know there's a lot of students here, and for me, I don't think I could have done, at least for my business, I couldn't have done it until I had gone through and worked. It wouldn't have been a job that I could have easily just started, a company I could have started right out of school. I needed to meet people and learn how to do certain things and what not to do from people that had what I thought were poor leadership qualities and all that kind of stuff. And I think I was 30 when I started the first company.
So, yeah, and you are a serial entrepreneur. You have had several companies, and Fingerpaint, I think, is the 4th company that you have really built up. So talk about that. I want you to talk about when you decide you made a decision, I'm going to not be an employee anymore.
Yep.
I'm going to be a business owner. So you set out your shingle.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. I always say the hardest part of starting a company is jumping in the pool and actually doing it, because then you realize that you don't have a net, you don't have a paycheck coming in, it's all on you. But once you make that decision and you're actually working, it becomes, you put your pants on every morning the same as every other day, and you just go to work. And so I started a marketing consulting company when I was 30, and I hired a bunch of guys, and we were doing marketing work for friends and family, basically people that I knew, that I had met through my business experiences, that wanted to hire us to basically help with marketing plans and competitive assessments and all sorts of fun strategic stuff. And then we had, I think a lot of business is listening to what people need, and then if you hear that they need something, then you find a solution and fill it. So we had a lot of consulting clients that were asking us to do advertising. I didn't have any way of doing that, but I figured I could figure it out just like anybody else. So hired a couple of people, and we basically built, on card tables, we built an ad agency, literally out of nothing, and that became Palio, which is in Saratoga Springs. Grew that to about 150 people, and we sold it in 2006. I was able to sell that. I had some financial partners, and we sold that business for about $30 million. And then in 2008, made the decision that I wanted to start another agency, so we started this company, Fingerpaint, in 2008. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, if you've been in Saratoga, but it's right in the middle of Broadway in downtown Saratoga, where the Borders bookstore used to be, for those of you who know that. So we're in an old Borders building.
So if I am a student, and or not even a student, if I'm just considering, I'm thinking, you know, the idea of owning my own business sounds pretty good. I heard you say that it's about problem solving. It really is kind of seeing, and would you say that's a good approach to take?
I think so. I mean, I would have never had the courage to start a business if I didn't know where I thought the next month of cash, or I had an actual client. So in the business that I do, advertising, you have to basically hire teams of people, you know, web designers, developers, creative people, writers. So in order to pay for those people, you have to have work coming in. I wasn't in a financial position where I could just hire them and then keep my fingers crossed and hope we got some work. So it was more finding out, getting people to hire us or to give us work, and then scrambling to try to figure out how to get it done.
What would you say a misconception would be that you had about being a business owner? It's something you just never saw it coming.
I think when you finally start a company, it's your baby, right? You're so excited, you finally have the guts to do it. You're walking away, you're fired up, you're terrified, but you're getting up at 3 in the morning because it's fun and you're jazzed. That same level of energy and excitement that you have, nobody else in your company will ever have that, even though it's a job to them, and that's fine, it's great, you know, they're going to be excited, but at the end of the day, you know, they're punching a clock and they got lives and things like that. So they're not really worried about, do you have enough money for payroll, or is the rent due, or you know, do we have work coming in? You just have, you take all that on, and I think when I first started, I think I told you this story last time, when I hired my first person ever, and it's terrifying when you hire your first person, because now you're like, not only am I worried about taking care of me, but now I've got this other person who's trusting me to have enough money to give them a paycheck every week. And I remember like 5 minutes to 5 on her first day, she starts putting her sneakers on and loading up her stuff, getting ready to leave. And I remember I had like 5 hours left of work in the day, and she's out the door because she's got kids, she's got to cook dinner and be with her husband and blah, blah, blah. And I think that was a real kind of wake-up call, like, oh my gosh, this isn't her dream too, right? It's just a job to her, so.
So it really, as a business owner, it's a completely different mindset that you have. There's a shift that needs to take place from being an employee.
Yeah, and it's absolutely terrifying, in a good way. But it's a scary, you know, it's scary to be operating without a net, right? You know, I always have admired people that start like restaurants or bars where they have all this expense up front, and then they have to kind of hope to God that people actually show up and like the food. And meanwhile, they've got $100,000 of their own money invested in this building, or staff and salaries and all that, and it's scary.
What would you say, again, thinking about, I want to start my own business, but I want to try and prepare myself as well as I can, knowing that there are always going to be things that you can't gauge. What would you say, as you look back, are some characteristics that would either have been, that have helped you be successful, that are good to cultivate?
Yeah, I think hardworking, obviously. I was never the smartest guy in the room. I say that all the time. I have the courage to hire people that are way smarter than me and get out of their way. I would say hardworking, honest, trustworthy, not afraid to fail, right? There are certain times, I mean, every day there's stuff that comes up where you're like, gosh, that didn't work out the way I had hoped it would, but you just got to keep plowing ahead. I would say those are the good ones.
When you went to grad school, you said you actually did take some courses that had to do with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Were there particular courses that you were saying, you know what, if I had had that before I started the business?
Yeah, I think I got a lot out of classes that were taught by business people. So guys that, I remember one of my classes was taught by Tom Golisano, who ran Paychecks and ran for governor 1 year. Danny Wegman, who started Wegmans, taught one of my marketing classes. I think I mentioned this to you. I don't know, you remember the Michael Jackson story? So I know you guys are younger, but Michael Jackson did a Pepsi commercial about 20 years ago, and his hair caught on fire. It was pretty famous. And my advertising class was taught by the creative director who got fired when Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire. So he was in charge of that shoot, and they had to fire somebody, so he lost his job. So it was really funny to hear his stories about, I guess if you burn the king of pop's hair, somebody's going to lose their job.
And the good thing about that also would be that you can fail your way to success, because obviously he bounced back.
Yeah, another door opened, right?
Would you say that is that's pretty accurate, though? I mean, I know that in reading about business and reading about very often is entrepreneurs, that you really do have to fail your way to success.
Yeah, I think so. You learn a lot from what doesn't work, and you just can't take. You just got to keep going, right? If something happens that you lose business, or somebody leaves that you didn't want to leave, or you just got to keep rolling with it.
Can you talk a little bit about? This is something that sort of was interesting to me. How I talked to Danielle before we got together, and I know she said that you had some different things that you guys were working on. I'm curious about, I don't know if I'm using the right term, the pitch. When you're kind of bringing in a particular program together, does that, the energy in your agency, I would imagine it's pretty fast-paced anyway, but talk about how that...
Yeah, so if you've seen TV, Mad Men and things like that, where they go in and they're presenting creative and they're presenting their ideas for how to market a product, that's really how it is. I mean, we'll get an opportunity to go in and talk to McDonald's, and they'll send us a sheet and say, these are the things we want you to address, and then we'll spend a couple of weeks all on our dime trying to get ready for the opportunity, and then you go in and you present against 6 different agencies, and if you get picked, then you get to work, and if you don't, then all that work is for nothing, and it's just the name of the game. But obviously, with what we do in advertising, it's the average age of our staff is probably 27, 28 years old. A lot of high energy. The hours are awful in advertising because you're beholden to the client. So if a client calls us up on a Friday and says, hey, I've been thinking I want to change these aspects to the app that we're working on, and I need it by Wednesday for a board meeting, there goes your weekend, and you're working all weekend to try to get it done, but that's kind of the name of the game, right, if you're in the service business.
So it can be, would you say the energy is pretty high-paced anyway, but when you're actually about to go into a pitch, it's at frenzy level?
Yeah, pitches are crazy, and it's a lot of money. I mean, we could spend $100,000 in time and expenses to try to get ready for one of these. So when you lose, it stinks because you put so much effort into it.
Sure.
And you hope that you win more than you lose. And the energy, I mean, we try very hard to focus on the staff. I know we talked about that last time. After you've been there 5 years, you get a month off to just go and decompress. You get your birthdays off. Everybody owns stock in the company. It's a very collaborative work environment. So, but literally, like I know a lot of times people associate jobs with you got to be there at 9 and leave at 5. Ours are completely whatever we need to do. So sometimes if people are light with work, they'll go home at noon and they're done, and the next night they might be there till 3 in the morning, depending on whatever has to get taken care of. So
that's actually a question I was going to ask. In a job, sometimes you think of, well, I want to get a job and I want a certain salary, but it sounds as if the compensation that you give your employees it's not just about the money.
No, and I've seen a lot of studies that look at what do people value, right? And obviously, everybody wants to make money, but staff want to feel appreciated. They want to constantly be learning new things. They don't want to be stuck in some monotonous, boring job day after day after day. New challenges, new opportunities. Obviously, the money part's important, but we try to do other things too. We let people bring their dogs to work, little things like that that really kind of make people feel appreciated. If you go into our office, all of the carpets, the entire carpet are these little 2x2 squares, so if the dogs have an accident, we just pull the carpet up and throw it in. And the woman who works in our front desk, you met Alex, she has a pig. So when we said, hey, you can bring your pet to work, I didn't realize that somebody actually had a pig. So we have this, every once in a while there'll be a pig in our office, and it's like an acid trip because you see the thing walk by. Did I really just see that? It's like 40 pounds, and I didn't realize, or she didn't realize, that these things live to be like 25 or 30 years. So if you think it's hard to get, she's like 24, so you think it's hard to get an apartment with a dog. Imagine going to the landlord and saying, yeah, I have a pig, 40-pound pig. So anyway, we digress.
That's good stuff. So I asked you, what was surprising to you about, being a business owner. Tell me what delights you about owning your own business.
I get a real kick out of creating a work environment and creating a place that will give people jobs, because I know that at the end of the day I'm helping to support their families, and that's very rewarding for me. I think the other thing is the thrill of the hunt and trying to win new business. It can be really exciting, and I really do enjoy that part too.
A big part of what you do at Fingerpaint Marketing, I know, is around philanthropy. Mm-hmm. And it would appear to me that as a business owner, the things that kind of float your boat are going to trickle down. So talk about philanthropy and how that relates for you personally in the Fingerpaint Marketing. Yeah,
so we do a lot of pro bono or free work for the community. So if there are certain charity organizations that need advertising support, they need a new website, they need us to write a check because they're doing a fundraising event, they need to use our office for certain events or use our parking lot to charge money for charities. We try to do a lot of that stuff. We actually have a totally separate website dedicated to giving back to the community where people can go on and companies can go on and request help, right? So I think within Albany and Saratoga, there's like 1,200 nonprofits or some ridiculous number of, you know, most of them are incredibly compelling causes. You know, you've got, you know, rape crisis centers and soup kitchens and homelessness and all these different types of things. And we've kind of created a culture that we get a rush out of being able to help other people, and it kind of cascades down to the staff. We have somebody on the staff whose whole job is basically to manage all of our nonprofit work and corporate giving, and we do it primarily out of a sense. It makes us feel great. It's not, we don't feel a sense of obligation. We do it because it makes us feel good, and it's really rewarding to do that. It's hard because you want to help everybody and you can't. I knew they had there was a big Code Blue thing up in Saratoga this winter where there wasn't a shelter for people to go if it got below like 25 degrees. So you see these poor homeless people out there, and the woman actually froze outside of a homeless center because there was no place for her to go at night. So you know, this whole community rallied around to get a shelter created, and we gave money, and a bunch of other organizations gave money, and it just felt great to be able to do that. And it was easy for us to prioritize that versus giving money to like the Automobile Museum or something that just didn't, you know, just didn't make sense for us.
So that's the philanthropy piece. Would you say that's related? I know community engagement is something that's you're involved in a lot of things personally and as well as Fingerpaint Marketing.
Yeah, so I'm on the SPAC board, which is great because I can get tickets. I have to pay for them, but I get really good seats. So if you want Dave Matthews tickets, I'm the guy. I'm on the board of the Hyde Collection, Union Graduate College, and the Double H Ranch, which is a camp for critically ill kids up in Lake Luzerne, up towards Lake George. So, but I think because our building is right in the heart of downtown Saratoga, it gets a lot of recognition, and that's why we try to help as many as we can, because we get a lot of requests. I mean, today I can think of 3 that we got just today for people looking for, you know, help for this event or that event.
Talk about, going back a little bit, mentorship. I know you talked a little bit about classes that you enjoyed when you were in school, but just as you think, is there someone that you can think of, or perhaps more than one person, that you would say, you know what, that is someone that I absolutely can count a mentor. Really glad they were there. Yeah,
I had several guys that I knew that were probably 10 or 20 years ahead of me that had started companies, were a huge asset for me. Especially when I was starting out, I didn't know how to incorporate. I didn't know how do I get a web address. I didn't know how to get a federal tax ID number. I mean, once you've done it a couple of times, I mean, you can start up a company in a day, but unless you've done it, you have no idea what the heck to do. What kind of business insurance do I need? What should I be an S corp, a C corp, an LLC? What are the tax, you know, differences, and all this stuff that, you know, I pretty much slept through an accounting class in grad school, and now it's like, holy crap, I really got to know this. So there were several guys that I knew that I had gone to and kind of picked their brains, and they were very you know, they wanted to help. You know, I think other people that have started companies take empathy and they want to try to help you. So.
In our region at this time, this really seems to be a time when entrepreneurship is, I hate to say hot topic, because it's been building. I mean, we've got the Tech Valley moniker that has been built for several years to put that in place. So looking at that entrepreneurship that's taking place right now, it's, you know, what do you feel is do you see anything that's trending? Do you see anything that if we've got students here who are maybe thinking about moving into entrepreneurship, owning their own business, what do you see?
The one thing that I would guard against is that me? Oh, sorry. The one thing I would guard against, I help to coach or judge a business, what do you call it, like
startup weekend.
Yeah, so where students would come in and they would present their ideas on different businesses, and I think 80% of the businesses that came in were counting on the next new app that they were gonna, they had Angry Birds on steroids and they were gonna get 20 million downloads for $3 a piece, and it was like everybody in the world is gonna want this app. And I know that's kind of a generational thing because you see folks doing it that are making good money, but there's got to be 10 million of them that never make it, or there's 3,000 of them that do the exact same thing. And I would just caution against that kind of mentality where you're going to make money $3 at a time. I know it can get done and people do it, but I've always felt like it's a lot easier to sell one thing for $100,000 than it is to sell 100,000 things for $1. Maybe that's old school and wrong, but
it goes to the bank. It sounds like.
yeah, and it's just I think it goes back to finding something that's truly valuable and that people will want that ultimately can't be duplicated or copied in 5 minutes. Right?
So, looking at our crowd tonight, what would you? How would you go about that? How would you say? How would I find that thing?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I learned in grad school about starting a company is don't open up a sports bar because you like to go to sports bars. You have to actually know something about what it is you're trying to start a company in. So, and I think that's very difficult to do until you're out in the workplace and actually getting some experience. It doesn't mean you have to work for 30 years in a hospital if you decide you want to start and open your own hospital, but you need to have some kind of basic understanding of the business, I think. And I think that would be one thing that I would encourage people to do. If you have an idea for a business, let's say, whatever it is, you want to open a golf course. Okay, you should probably spend some time working on a golf course and understanding the business of it and everything about it, because you're going to have to do it at some point. And did I answer your question? Or
I think you did. I think you did. Yeah, no, I think what I was trying to get to is, looking at these guys, what should I do? If I have an interest, I have an idea.
Write a business plan, and those are critical. Your professors probably talk about that, but you absolutely should do that. What's my business going to stand for? What's the competitor set look like? How are we going to make money? How much money do we need to start? Where's the revenue coming from? What's going to be a competitive response if we do this? All those, and I mean, you can buy software packages that for $50 at Best Buy or online that will walk you through how to write a proper business plan, but I think they force you to answer questions that you might not have thought of. I think the biggest thing that, for me, that I've seen, having done this a couple of times, is that businesses don't go out of business because they're not profitable. They go out of business because they run out of cash. And you need to have enough cash to be able to fund your operations, fund your staff, fund your rent or equipment or whatever it is you're doing. If somebody gives, let's say you have an idea for some online tool that you're going to build and you get $50,000 in startup money because you win a competition, that sounds like, man, that's a crap load of money, but you'll be amazed at how quickly you'll go through $50,000. You need servers, you need equipment, you need rent, you need insurance if you're going out on your own. You're going to have to eat, you're going to have to pay yourself some kind of salary. You're going to need to promote the thing, you're going to need to hire people to help you when you get stuck on a program. And before you know it, you thought, hey, $50,000, I can make that stretch for 2 years, and you're out of money in 3 months. And so that would be one thing I would plan for, right? The other thing too is just ask people, ask anybody you know that has done it, even if it's not in the same industry, but ask them, what are the pitfalls, what are you, what should I watch out for, how should I do this or that?
That leads to the next question, which is, you've been a mentor, or you've had mentors, but now you are in a position where people are seeking you out, again, for the startup weekends, really wanting to pick your brain about being a business owner, let me clarify that, being a successful business owner, because it doesn't make much sense to ask questions. So how would you recommend that folks get a mentor?
I would pick somebody that they trust. If it's students, maybe professors that have started businesses, or alumni that have done it. I mean, RPI's got to have a gazillion wicked smart people that have started companies coming out of here. they're obviously people that go and talk to. Internships and are awesome. We hire 4 or 5 interns every summer. We probably get 300 applications. We end up hiring a lot of them right after. We had one woman that went to Villanova, and she was graduating in December, and we had her last summer. And we tried to convince her to blow off her last semester and not get her degree and just come work with us, but she decided she wanted the degree, so she went back. But we gave her an offer before she left, and she started in January. So internships are awesome too.
Have you ever, and I want to leave time for folks to ask some questions as well, have you ever had an experience or a day or a business deal that just made you say, you know what, I don't think so?
Oh, sure. I mean, if we get clients that are a real pain in the ass or that are belligerent or difficult to work with, we will fire them just as quickly as they can fire us. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, I've been doing this, 15 years now, is life's too short to work with people that you don't really want to work with. There are times when you need to take business to keep the lights on, right? So, it's very rewarding when you get to the point where you're like, we got asked to pitch a tobacco company, as an example, like huge money, right? And we just said, you know what, it just doesn't feel right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you'd say that even after your due diligence, after all of the things that you should go with your gut?
I think so, and bang it up against the financial realities of what you need to do, right? I mean, there are times when, if we have a difficult client, I don't want to sound all, altruistic that we, won't work with difficult people, but there's a certain breaking point where you're like, okay, we're not going to compromise our integrity just for a couple of bucks. Yeah.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing you say, it's about working really hard, being persistent, do your work up front, do your due diligence, do your research, and find people that can really help you out.
And I would say leverage all of your personal connections and relationships, right? I mean, our business is very relationship driven. So if I've worked with people over the years and they go to a different company and we've done good work for them, a lot of times they'll bring us in and they'll have us do more work for them. If you're just starting out and you've got a thing that you think, let's say you're starting a coaching company, or and you want to be a personal coach to people, or a business coach, leverage the people that leverage, and try to get, people want to help people that they like and trust, and I mean, all things being equal, I would rather give business to somebody that I know and like versus somebody that I don't know.
Sure.
So I think a lot of times, and I see that a lot with people that have just graduated from college too, where they're trying to get jobs and they're coming in off the street, trying to interview and things like that. But it's a lot easier. I mean, we're a small company, right? We have 100 people. We do $18 million a year, which for company's pretty small. We're not General Electric, right? We get hundreds and hundreds of resumes every year, and we're more likely to interview people if there's some type of personal connection. I get a call, I know the person's dad, or there's some type of, hey, can you take a look at this? There's a certain
rapport.
Yeah, versus just seeing somebody out of the blue. And I think starting companies is very similar to that, in that people want to help people that they know, and so don't be afraid to reach out to those folks.
Okay. All right, now I've got silly questions that I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Don't think about them, just get the first one that comes up. What do you own that you would never sell?
Is that some psychological question?
No, just talk about
like my integrity, or is it something like that, or do you mean
do you have something that you're just like?
I had something and I lost it in a fire. I had a Harley that I loved,
okay.
And my wife went out of town for one night. This is actually a true story. We had a little barn in our house, off of our house, and it was like a guy cave. I had a Harley, golf clubs, fishing equipment, all my tools. My wife went out of town for one night, and I love Chinese food. She hates Chinese food, so I'm like, I'm going to go and get Chinese food and a bottle of scotch, and I'm going to watch college basketball all night, because it was right during the tournament. And I was happy as a clam, right? And I spilled all the grease from the egg roll on my sweatpants, so the next morning I'm like, I got to go get some sweatpants. So I went to the mall to get sweatpants, and I came back and the barn was on fire. and it was some electrical short. Well, anyway, all my guy stuff got completely burned, but I had a Harley in there, and I miss it dearly.
The
So.
Harley would be the...
Yeah, that would probably be the one thing. I had a 58 Corvette years ago, and I had to sell it for office furniture, which stung. We got the bill for office furniture, it was $60,000, and I was looking around going, what do I have that's worth $60,000? And I'm looking at this car, and I'm like, oh God. So we had a conference room that was painted yellow in honor of the yellow Corvette.
Okay, if you were an animal, like, what animal would you be?
Probably a lab, because they're loyal and they're fun and they're just like to lie around and sleep whenever they have a chance, and that's probably me. Because I work so hard that I love naps.
Napping is a skill, it's an art form.
Yeah.
Napping.
I looked at one of those, have you seen those pod centers that they have in like Google and stuff where you can get these like they're like $15,000 those things. So have you seen those?
No.
It looks like a big egg,
Yeah.
and you sit and you lay in it, and it's like a meditation / quiet,
Okay.
sleepy thing, but
Superhero.
Superman, but not to be an ego jerk. I always thought being able to fly would be really cool.
Very cool. Flying.
Yeah.
Flying, I agree. Flying would be a cool skill.
I was actually getting my pilot's license, and my instructor died in a crash.
Well,
So-
and that would make you have some
And so I
thoughts
stopped. I said, you know what, if he can't
That was a
do
sign.
it.
He's
So-
trained.
Yeah, that's true, actually, though. So I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't for me.
What's your most unusual skill? And then we'll go to questions.
I have the ability, I think, I don't know if you've ever read that book, Blink. It's a business book that talks about the ability to assess people very, very quickly, and I think that I can meet somebody in an interview situation and in 60 seconds tell whether or not I think it's a good fit or not. I don't need, like speed dating, you know how they say speed dating, you 10 or 15 minutes, then you go to the next chair, and then you go, I think I'd need like 45 seconds. And I can go, yeah, I've always been able to, and I'm usually right, not all the time, and the hard thing for me is that if I'm wrong, it takes a lot for me to change that opinion.
Yes.
So,
yes.
because I get stuck on it, and,
And you're there? Okay.
yeah.
All right. Are there any questions?
Fire away, come on. Yes, sir.
You talked about your first company when you went up to 30 million and stuff. When you were scaling up, I mean, you fired up, you got started. Could you, like, what about the 5-6 year mark? 'Cause a lot of people hit things, they call it the dip, you know, and you try to scale, and because a lot had to happen between then and 30 million. So.
Yeah, you know what, a lot of it was, at least in our business, it's people. 80% of our costs are people. So whenever we've gone like to that next level, it's predominantly because we brought in people that could help get us to the next level. Going back to my comment about me never being the smartest guy in the room, that's absolutely true. And if I learned a long time ago that there were certain levels in our company that when we hit, I wasn't the right guy to be managing finance anymore. I wasn't the right guy to be managing. So I think, which is tough because it costs money to add those resources, but it's almost like that 4x4 relay in the Olympics where you're exhausted and you're handing the baton to somebody else, and then they're taking off like a shot because they've got, you know, what's your business?
Yeah, I'm in the education business, make
Okay.
curriculum. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a pretty cyclical market.
Yeah.
We started out strong, but
yeah.
kind of hit some tough times
Yeah,
after about 5 years.
yeah.
I kind of had a similar question, which was you hired that one person, like time frame wise, did you go from 1 to 3 to 5 to?
Yeah, our business, we make money a lot like a law firm, like we bill hours. So as we get work, we basically back into how many people we need to then do that project. So we can go for a year and not hire anybody and then win a piece of business and have to hire 40 people in a week. So it's really chaotic. And it's probably one of the hardest things that I and our team has to manage is that capacity and when to add people. And you don't want to burn people out. You need to have people that can do the work, but you also need to have people that can go after new business. And then when you bring it in, oh my God, we just sold this and now we don't have enough people to do the work. And so it's it's tough. I found that for me personally, it was much harder to go from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 than it was to go from 40 to 60, because you get to that point where you've got like for instance, like when we started, we had 10 or 15 people. We didn't have an HR person because we couldn't afford it. We didn't have an IT person. But then you win business and we get to maybe 25, and then it was like, okay, now we're spending more on a consultant to come in and fix the computers than if we had somebody here full-time doing it. And then when he comes in, it's suddenly like everything works better. You know what I mean? So we hit these different levels where we could afford different skill sets that we couldn't before. Like the first time we used to do all our own billing and all that kind of stuff, and then when we finally got to the point where it's like, okay, we need somebody to come in and manage this because we can't do it anymore. It was like, such a relief that her job now is to do all of our accounting, and she's better at it than all of us combined. So.
This gentleman right here has a question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Actually, we had this one first.
Go.
Then we'll go right to you after
You mentioned
that.
you had 4 businesses. So what became of the other 3?
Well, I had a marketing consulting business. I had Paleo, which is the agency we sold, Fingerpaint, and then the other one was with another guy. We started a horse syndicate, which is a complete money loser. I would never recommend doing it. It's basically a mutual fund where we get guys to chip in money and we go out and hire a trainer and buy racehorses to race in Saratoga, which is really fun because you'll have 50 guys and we'll all own like 2% of a horse. So, but it's like make-believe, especially when you live in Saratoga, because New York State looks at if you own 2% of a horse or you own a Kentucky Derby winner, 100% of it, you're still considered a horse owner. So we get all these, like we can go in the backstretch in the barns and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like, it's a fun make-believe thing that we write one check and we never expect to see the money again. And but it's more of an entertainment thing. So, and it's great because I can take clients to the track and all that kind of stuff. So.
This
Yeah.
gentleman in Cal.
So if you're starting out and you have an idea that, I mean, maybe you don't necessarily need like office space,
Yeah.
but you need to learn things. Like you need to know setting up a web page. You need to know how to like get whatever information you need from whatever place. What would you say is a better idea? To like maybe teach yourself that stuff? I mean, maybe it takes an amount of time, or maybe to hire someone.
I think it depends on what kind of resources you have, going back to that cash flow thing, right? So if you can, I personally focus on the stuff that you're good at and get people to help you for the stuff that you're not good at. So like I knew when I took an accounting class in grad school, I knew very quickly that I was never going to do our payroll or payroll taxes, or in the first day, you know, my eyes are glazing over. I'm like, I'm not, it would take me so long to learn how to do that, or I don't know how to build a web page. I have no idea how to do that. We have guys that are geniuses at that stuff. But for me to sit there, and I would rather focus on the business and trying to figure out how I'm going to sell my product and what it is, than trying to teach myself how to do my taxes or a web page. I would try to get help if you can. And you can get, I mean, the resources I would think you have at school, or friends that can put up a web page for you that are really good at it. I would recommend that if you can. You know, the one thing you don't want to do when you're starting out is you don't want to spend any money. So you know, if you don't need an office, great, work out of your basement. If you don't need, you know, if you can market yourself through Twitter and some of the social media and things like that, and you don't need to spend money, you know, buying ads in the Times-Union, great. You know, save everything you can. Yes, sir.
What do you look for when you find someone to either partner with or to hire? And also, how do you work with? Do you work hard on people to improve them as they're at your company?
Yeah. So great question. So if someone's right out of school, and I apologize if I'm offending the RPI folks, but I don't think anybody's qualified to do anything when they get out of college. I certainly wasn't. I mean, you have very little experience. You have to learn everything, right? So what I look for is somebody who's hungry, who's personable, who looks you in the eye, who seems very kind of polished and sharp. I look at where they went to school. I don't necessarily, I don't look at their GPA. My GPA was like 2.6, so it's hard for me to look at somebody and go, oh, you only made Dean's List twice. I never made Dean's List. So, and I don't even, in a lot of situations, I don't even look at what their degree is in. If it's in business or marketing or advertising or English, or you just look for really smart, sharp people that want to work hard. Now that may be different, that's in the advertising space, right? If we're looking for engineers, we might need somebody with some very specific skill sets that I wouldn't have the first foggy idea how to evaluate. In terms of your question about training, we spend a ton of time. There's that old adage where the CFO says to the CEO, we can't afford to train all these people, what if they leave after we train them? And the CEO says to the CFO, well, what if we don't train them and they stay, right? So we are constantly doing in service. We had somebody in the last 2 days doing communication training for some of our junior people in terms of how to present, how to talk to clients in a more effective way. We'll do best practice training where the web team will come in and, in terms of how do you design sites, what are best practices, what are things to look for. We constantly do a lot of that stuff. And I think the staff loves it. They want to learn, and we have to do that to stay competitive, because if we don't, we're going to get passed. And especially nowadays where, when I had Paleo, I used to say we were really good at STF, which was shit that folds, right? We were good at newspaper ads and journal ads and direct mail and all that kind of stuff. Now nothing folds, right? It's all digital. So, and it's changing so quickly. Google changes their algorithms on how things are found in the search engines, or what's the impact of video tagging and all these things that if we're not really staying up on that stuff, we won't be able to move product. So.
I guess the follow-up to that is also for partners. How do you look for an equal, not just someone you're employing?
Yeah, well, we don't have partners here, so everybody owns stock in the company, so we try to instill that kind of sense of we're all in it together. In our company, we don't have titles. Nobody has an office, me included. Everybody has cubes. We're all out on the floor. We're all in it together. So we do things like that to try to instill this sense of collaboration and camaraderie. And it works for our business. I don't necessarily think it would work for a bank, right? They need that kind of structure. But for us, where if we're working on a job and it requires, it's funny, we could be doing a video for somebody, and we need somebody who's a writer. We need a creative person that can do the design. We need a videographer. We need a web programmer. We need an editor. All these people have to come together to do the job. So we try very hard to value everybody regardless of what their contribution is. I don't know if I answered your question, but a couple of years ago, we had one of my buddies was going on a pitch. They spent $50,000 or whatever to get ready for this advertising pitch. And the admin accidentally booked their travel to the wrong city. So they were going to Sony, and Sony had like 14 different offices in New Jersey, and they went to the wrong one, and they missed the meeting. And so I've always used that as kind of a learning lesson to say, it's very easy to get caught up in your own ego and think that, well, the creative is the most important thing, or blah, blah, blah. But if that admin doesn't think that her job is equally important, we're screwed, because if we go to the wrong city, we're not going to get the business, just like we're not going to get the business if the web page doesn't work. So we try very hard to make sure that everybody's kind of in it together. I don't know if I answered your question, but partner-wise, if I was to go out and look for a partner, which I am not really that interested now in my career, maybe 10 years ago I would have, you look for people with financial resources, because you're going to need money, and you look for people that can ultimately bring in business or add a skill set that you don't have. So that if it's business development, if it's sales, if it's HR, human resources and organizational structure theory, I don't want people all around a table that all know what I know. Otherwise, it's like, why are we they're not needed. So.
Getting back to the cash flow question,
Yeah.
when you're selling consulting services and professional services, what's your take on trying to sell retainers versus hourly or project-based
Sure.
pricing?
Okay, so the question, a retainer contract's basically, if we know we're gonna do $1 million of work with a client over the course of a year, they pay us equally over those months. We just divide it by 12, and then we bill them every month for that. So those are wonderful if, for certain situations, if cash flow is a real issue. The only challenge where it can bite us is if we do all the work in the front of the year, and then, because we get a lot of this, right?
That's the
depending on-
challenge, yeah.
Right, so, I have found that a lot of clients, they think retainer's like a 4-letter word. Like they think, at least in our business, they equate that with, we're gonna pay you whether or not you do work or not. So what we often do is we'll bill half up front and then half at the conclusion of the job. Hopefully they'll pay within 30 days. Like we do work for GE and they pay us in 120 days. And they tell us up front, we're gonna pay you in 120 days. And you need to kind of deal with that, which sucks because you've started the work. Sorry for the suck. You start the work, you finish it, you bill it, you're getting paid 7 months after you've actually started paying salaries, but it's GE, so you want the work, and the work is great, the people are great to work with, it's just financially, it's a bear. So I would try to get as much money up front as you can, half up front maybe. We bill all out of pockets in advance if we can. So if we're placing ads on Google and it's a $500,000 buy, a lot of times we'll bill that up front and we can get that money and keep it in reserve and then pay Google as we go, which helps also. But cash flow is a nightmare. And all the banks say they want to lend to small businesses and none of them do unless you don't need the money. When you need the money, they don't want to lend it to you, but when you're flush with cash and everything's going great, then they all want to be your friend. At least that's been my experience.
This gentleman in the back.
Yes, sir.
So many people suggest we should go to work in those big companies to gain experience before we really start something in the same field. But there was also an opinion that when you go to work for those companies, you learn how to be an employee, but you do not learn the skills for employers. So you should just go to start yourself.
I think it depends. It depends on the company and if you want to be in, let's say you know that you want to do something in the digital world, to go and work at Google for a couple of years, I personally think you're going to get more out of that than you would probably any other, assuming you have a position there where you're meeting a lot of people, you're exposed to a lot of things. I always said that I could never have started our business if I was in a cube all day prior to that not meeting people. So you're right. I mean, there's a risk that if you go and work for a big company, you go work for IBM, and you're going to learn to think like IBM, and that's not going to translate. But I personally think if you can find a job where you're around really smart people, you're going to pick up stuff, and you may learn as much about what you don't want to do as what works. I just think it's invaluable to get that kind of experience and exposure. That's not to say that someone couldn't start a company right out of school and it could be a home run, right? I just know for me, I learned a lot from watching people and just doing, right? So what else? Anything else?
Do you work just in this area, or do you work all around the country?
No, all around the country. So our biggest clients in St. Louis, we have Minneapolis, Atlanta, Jersey, San Francisco. It's hard for us. Locally, we do work for Emma Willard, right in Troy. We do work for Glens Falls Hospital, GE. We try to find clients that really value, they don't have to be huge budgets, but we want clients that really value what we do. We're never going to be the right agency for Joe's Taco Shack down the street. They don't need us. It would be a waste of their money to hire somebody really big like us. A small company with 3 or 4 people would be great for them. And I tell people that too if they come to us, and I look at it and I go, look, we're going to blow your budget. You don't need us.
What's the average size of companies you work with?
Revenue-wise? Dollar-wise, in terms of marketing budgets, I would say probably $200,000 to $400,000.
No, I mean revenue as a company.
It really depends. I I would say, that's a great question. I would say anywhere from, and this is going to sound like a cop-out, but anywhere from $5 million to $500 million. It's a real swing. I think we just look for companies that have the resources to be able to do the work the way we think it needs to be done in order to be effective. Because the last thing we want to do is put something out there and it doesn't work. That's the worst. And if advertising is done right, you can spend $50,000 and have a really huge return. We did work for Emma Willard, you know, it's a girls' boarding school. It's about $40,000 or $50,000 a year to send your daughter to this high school. Very, you know, prestigious school, right around the corner. We did a whole digital campaign for them, and we didn't have to move the needle very far because each student's worth so much. So if we can get an extra 10 or 15 students in there, it pays for itself.
When you're doing a package today, because you talked about print going down, I mean, can you explain kind of what a package would be for a client? You know, how many different digital assets and
every
stuff?
client's different. So like Emma Willard was a lot of social media because we were trying to reach, we found out through our research that these 14-year-old girls are self-motivated and they're finding Emma on their own because they want a different experience. So we had to create marketing to target 14-year-old girls. So it's a lot of Instagram and all this stuff about where they're kind of hanging out. If we do something for GE, it's much different, where we're trying to reach scientists or engineers or patent lawyers, or so everything is different.
So you're doing it based on the needs, not what you guys do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll tell a client, look, you know, you're spending $300,000. Here's a great example. No one here works for AAA, do they? So we met
But
with
it's on video.
yeah. So we met with AAA, and there's AAAs all over the place, right? But they're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on direct mail. I personally don't think people read direct mail unless it's done really, really well, and it's difficult to measure. You can't track it. We all get the packages in the mail from AAA, and it goes right in the cylinder file, right? Because it's not compelling, and it's not. But what they offer is a great service, and they have insurance products and all sorts of different things. But I think they have marketed themselves because it worked that way 20 years ago, and it just doesn't work that way anymore. So.
Okay, well.
Anything else? I'll leave some cards up here. I'm happy to help anybody if after this you have questions or whatever. I do have to scoot in about 5 minutes, but I'll leave my cards and just email me or call me if there's anything I can do to help.
I just want to thank everyone for coming, and you're awesome.
Oh, thanks.
It's awesome, so thanks. That's going to be it, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.